Texas just landed a big-time transfer portal commitment in running back Raleek Brown. Very productive in 2025 at Arizona State. This is such a big-time commitment for Texas because you take a look at the depth chart in Austin right now at running back, there are not a lot of names there. Not even that there's not a lot of good names, there's just not a lot of names, period. Wisner, CJ Baxter, two guys that are transferring. Even depth guys like Derrek Gibson and Ricky Stewart won't be back for Texas in 2026. So this was a big get depth chart-wise, I think player-wise as well. We're going to take a look at some film right now. There's a lot of reason to be excited about Raleek Brown in 2026 for Texas, and then as an NFL draft prospect beyond that. So there's two kind of runs I want to talk about with Raleek Brown, and it's kind of an interesting football player because this is a guy that started off at running back at USC, ended up moving to the wide receiver room at USC, and then ended up transferring back to running back when he went on to Arizona State. But we're going to talk about him as a running back, but I just wanted you to keep that receiver thing in the back of your head. So with Raleek Brown, he's a very patient running back, very explosive running back as well. Those are the two things that we're going to come back to throughout this entire highlight video. But there's two kind of runs really I want to talk about with Ricky Stewart. The first one are the ones that are well blocked. He does a really good job on zone, just kind of letting the offensive line get into the second level and kind of letting that big hole develop. And when that big hole develops, when a play is well blocked, every single time Raleek Brown has that explosiveness and that long speed to turn a well-blocked play, that's well blocked for 10 yards. Then it's going to be the Raleek Brown show past 10 yards. And we can see 70 yards of this run right here is all Raleek Brown. So he's a very patient back. That's going to show up. But when you give him, if you can ever draw a straight line between Raleek Brown and the end zone and there's no defender there, there's a good chance that he's going to turn that into 6. And we saw that against Colorado before. We also saw it against this is Texas State. This is a long 75-yard run. So he's going to run a very good 40 time. The 10-yard split's going to be very good as well. Very patient back as well. And now we're going to get into the second kind of runs that we're going to see with Raleek Brown. So really like it when it's well blocked. Now, when it's not well blocked, we can see Raleek Brown just take over. He does a very good job. We saw the patience before. I now want to talk about the vision. This is a guy with a full 180 degrees of vision. If there's ever a lane for him to cut to the outside, he's going to feel it. And then that same explosiveness that we saw in a straight line is going to go to the outside. And he has that ability to bounce these runs and turn these into big yards, even when they're not as well blocked as those first clips that we saw. He does such a good job attacking these very awkward angles for defenders to tackle. We'll see that in the next couple here. But very explosive, the change of direction as well. This is a bit more of a change of direction thing, the way that he can just kind of cut on a dime here, but watch the way he can just stick his foot in the ground and then bounce to the outside. So Raleek Brown does such a good job of just kind of sensing those cutback lanes. He never has to stare at it. He doesn't have to turn his head around and then see that it's open. He just does a good job of kind of feeling where the defensive line and the linebackers are kind of out leveraged to, and then he can cut that back for a big gain to the outside. And we see him do that a good job against the front seven, but even when he gets into that second level, take a look at this right here. This is a good fill by this safety. I'm not sure what else you would coach watching the film after the fact, and then it's just the reality of trying to tackle a guy that's as explosive and can cut on a dime the way that Raleek Brown does. Because if this safety would have tried to get a lot closer before he kind of breaks down, Raleek Brown still would have been able to bounce it to the outside. He just can explode off of that foot and then add a whole bunch of yards to run. So really good vision, really patient back as well. And then I think the reason that Raleek Brown was such a big target for Texas, who had such a big need in the running back room, was because of that explosiveness. And then he's also a very intelligent running back, in my opinion. The vision, the patience, and then also a really good receiver. We'll see that in a little bit. Arizona State will line him up as a wide receiver, but also running routes out of the backfield. This is a guy that did play receiver for a year at USC, by the way. So good understanding of running routes, good hands as well. Really like him as a check down option, but we'll see him on a really nice wheel route where he'll just accelerate into the second level. He'll gear down, so it's an easy throw for Sims right here. And then you see the way he gears down, and then that change of direction, that vision. By the way, just because he's running a route doesn't mean he's still doesn't have that running back mentality. You can see in the second level there, that move that he put on was pretty nice on the safety. Now, the one thing with Raleek Brown, I will tell you, I think he does run with a pretty high pad level, which, I don't really care about if I'm Texas because, by the way, I have a really good contact balance runner in my 2026 recruiting class in Derrek Cooper. So I really like the dynamic that Texas will have in this running back room in 2026 where Raleek Brown's that freak athlete, and then you'll have Derrek Cooper as kind of that bigger, stronger running back, man. On my video that I did about Derrek Cooper, people were talking about him being like Adrian Peterson. I don't know if I'd go that far, especially with him in 2026 being a true freshman, but I am very excited about Derrek Cooper. And then Christian Clark as well, a guy that looked really good in the bowl game for Texas this just a couple weeks ago or whenever that game happened. So I think as far as Texas is concerned in 2026, still would not. I would expect them to go get another transfer portal name just because I'm going to have the depth chart up in a little bit. There's not a whole lot of names in this running back room, especially compared to what they had in 2025. But I think the 1-2 punch being Raleek Brown, Derrek Cooper, and then that last jab, that third move, it's going to be Christian Clark. Really excited about what Texas has in the running back room. Despite them losing, I don't think I've ever seen a running back room or any position group lose as many transfers as Texas's running back room will going into 2026. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that happens in NCAA 26, and you get all kind of mad. You're like, oh, that's not realistic. Well, it just happened at Texas. I think they did a real good job. Of course, recruiting Derrek Cooper, which wasn't just a one. That was years and years. He's going to be a big-time player for Texas, but then landing Raleek Brown as well in the transfer portal.